Welcome to another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show. Before we jump into today's show, I want to read something that I would probably say most people have never read because I don't even read people's channel description. So I wouldn't be surprised if most people have never read my channel description. So I want to read it and I'm going to tell you why. Adrienne is known for provoking thought, challenging ideologies, and yes, hitting nerves. She brings that same spirit to the Adrienne Ross Show as she addresses topics such as politics, faith, freedom, family, sports, and more. A to Z, Adrienne is on it. And that last part is really my tagline in my writing as well as my podcasting. And so again, A to Z, Adrienne is on it. And I wanted to share that because I have so many new subscribers. Shout out to y'all. Woo, woo. So many new subscribers. It's been really, really fun, really exciting to have so many new people on board. But I wanted to make sure that you know that I don't just talk about sports. So a lot of the newer people don't realize that, and they think that I just talk about sports. And so some people are like, oh, you don't just talk about basketball? Oh, goodness. Oh, you talk about politics? Oh, how dare you talk about X, Y, and Z? And so, yeah, A to Z, Adrienne is on it. So I do talk about politics. Now, if you're not interested in political conversations, if you're one to easily be offended if someone's political view doesn't align with yours, then it's just, it's kind of simple. Just don't watch that particular episode. That's all. If you're only here for the sports, you're still welcome to be here. But if if the politics bugs you, then you see a headline, then let's be adults and just keep it moving, and know that I talk about a whole wide range of stuff. And so today the conversation is not about basketball. Today the conversation is politics. So that is your fair warning that if you're not into politics, this is not the episode for you to watch. All right. And so that's all I wanted to say. So now let's jump into today's episode. I'm glad to have Kiya Cordeau on the Adrienne Ross Show. And if you've been following the Adrienne Ross Show for, I don't know, any length of time, she's certainly not a stranger. Kiya has a background in education. She's been a principal. She's currently a teacher, more than 2 decades in education. She and her husband have also been in ministry. She's involved in the fight against trafficking, sex trafficking. And she's a friend of mine. And one thing I don't know that I've ever mentioned on this show is that Kiya's background, her educational background, her degree is in political science. Her bachelor's degree is in political science, which is perfect because we're going to be talking about some things that are political today. So Kiya, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on the Adrienne Ross Show.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. There's a whole lot going on politically. And it's almost like, it was like a tidal wave. I mean, it's like we've had some things, and I've touched on them on this show, that have been building and building and building. And it's like everything went kaboom, right? I'm going to start, Kiya, with a letter from President Joe Biden that he released. And then I want to get your response to it.
Surely.
My fellow Democrats, I have decided not to accept the nomination and to focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president. And it's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this. Rather short letter. So I'm going to throw it to you. When you read that, heard the news, what were your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think President Biden took the hard line over and over and over. He said, I'm in this race. You're not going to get me out of this race. And he, day after day after day, the pressure just built up and he finally caved and didn't really address why he dropped out, except that, democracy, it has to be protected. Well, I think there are several things. So if, I've listened to your show many times and talking about his cognitive decline and that, at this point it's elder abuse, maybe he doesn't realize how bad it's become. Maybe he's in denial. I mean, that's certainly a possibility, and you can't fault someone of his age getting to that point for sure.
Right.
But the other thing is, I think, what that has been so significant throughout his whole presidential administration, his whole administration, is that things have been hidden. We've been lied to. The media has been lying to the American people. There's this huge cover up, and you want to know, okay, who all is complicit? Because if anybody has ever watched him speak, in the last, primarily last couple of years, you could see that this is happening. So all of a sudden, when he has this debate, he has this debate challenge for President Trump. Everyone knows he's going to tank this somehow. So, what's the rest of the story? And, and I don't find this believable, a believable scenario, a believable situation that it was, in light of the democracy and protecting the democracy, in light of fighting for America and what America needs, we have to come together as a Democratic Party, and I'm going to step down because we need to win. We need to get this country on track. We need to make sure that there's no upset to what we've accomplished so far. I don't buy it.
So you're saying there's more to the story. You sort of suggested, it sounded to me, you can correct me, that no, actually you said it. You didn't just suggest it. You said that everyone knew he was going to tank. So it sounds to me that what you are suggesting is that he was put out there to fail in front of the American people. Is that what you're saying?
I definitely think so, because how can you not? I mean, Donald Trump is a strong debater, first of all, and he is, he can be very vicious. I was thankful that he did not, that he was a little more reserved in this setting. I thought it was a great display. The debate gave President Biden an opportunity to speak and gave former President Trump, opportunity to speak. And so I think CNN did a really good job. I was a little surprised, but I was glad that it worked out that way. But I think, we've heard from several doctors over the course of the last several weeks, last month, I guess, since the debate, talk about, those who deal with dementia or dealing with some sort of cognitive decline, they wake up with, on a good day, it's a good day. Sometimes they wake up and it's a bad day, and you can't quite predict that. I feel like this situation, this debate was too important for them to say, first of all, for President Biden to issue that challenge and say, I'll take you any day, anytime, anywhere. First debate is here or now. For them to say, okay, this is really risky. There has to be had to have been something that was just like, okay, A, if it goes really well, it gives us some more time. B, if it doesn't go well, this, operation, put Kamala in, or operation next option. So obviously, I mean, that's just my opinion. But there's too much, there is just too much evidence along the way to say it just didn't make sense. And when things, as my mama says, when things don't make sense, they're likely because there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, that sounds like even more elder abuse. So a situation where perhaps he, as a person who's been in politics forever and doesn't want to relinquish his current role, he thinks that he can go toe to toe with Donald Trump, but the advisors around him don't believe he can, but they put him out anyway because there's another plan to have Kamala Harris come through the back door. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. Otherwise, then they look like, I mean, what's the alternative? All of a sudden, he has a bad day. This debate goes awry. It's, all hell breaks loose. And next thing we've got Nancy Pelosi, we've got, top Democrats, we've got
Yeah,
Chuck
Chuck
Schumer,
Schumer.
we've
Yeah.
got all these people. The Democratic Party is saying, oh no, what are we going to do? Our Congress people, our senators are saying, oh no, what are we going to do? I think he should step down. I think he should bail. Were they surprised? I don't
Mm.
think so.
So then that begs this question. Did they set him up to fail via the debate because they didn't want him in there, period, no matter the cognitive issue?
Mm.
Or are you saying that because they recognize the cognitive issue, this was a way to expedite getting him out of the way because he wasn't going to step down? Is it because of the cognitive issue, or is it that was just the scapegoat? Guardians of Liberty will meet next on August 13th at 5 p.m. at Delmonico's in Jackson. The guest speaker will be Jeanette Finicum. The topic, Death by Labels, Murder by Government. The Lavoy Finicum story. Guardians has fascinating speakers to engage, educate, and empower you. Invite a friend to attend Guardians meetings with you. Remember, Guardians of Liberty is committed to proclaiming liberty throughout all the land.
I think that was just the scapegoat. I mean, I think you could argue it either way.
Mhm.
Because he proved over and over, time and time again, that that was not going to be his best. He was not going to do well. I didn't want him to fail. It would have been great if he just laid out his case, laid out what he felt like he had done. He's the president of the United States of America.
Sure.
We want our president to do well. We pray for our presidents, we pray for our leaders in office. And so, we definitely don't want him to tank like that, and it's definitely, when he had those moments of forgetfulness, those moments of, the look of, wait, where am I? It was very cringeworthy. The whole
Yes.
world saw that. That was not just our little, we're not an island to ourselves, so definitely it's been embarrassing. It's been painful to watch. It's been, disappointing. And like you've mentioned before, you definitely don't want to see anybody going through that, but it happens. It happens. So I can't possibly believe that the people that he worked with every day did not notice these things and say, okay, we either have to make a change, or how do we do this gracefully, or,
But that's what I'm trying to get at. Is it because they were trying to gracefully remove him because of the cognitive stuff, or did they want him out anyway? In other words, if he
it
were,
could be
I mean,
both.
it's all speculation.
Yeah,
Obviously,
it's all
that's what
speculation.
we. Yeah, that's what we're doing here. We're
Right,
speculating. We're conversing about it. We
right,
don't know for sure what seems obvious is that there's a problem. But you
right.
mentioned in the beginning that he didn't say, and even in that letter, he didn't say why he was stepping aside. But let
Mhm.
me change a little bit, because there are people who say that if you are not capable, if you are not fit to run for 4 more years, to accept
Right,
that nomination after people voted for you to be the nominee, and we are, short few days away
right,
from when he was supposed to stand up behind the podium and say, I accept your nomination.
right.
um, so if he's not able to do that, some say he's not able to continue now, that he needs to step aside now. What do you think?
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. I think if his and I think the reason why he did not address why he was stepping down in his latest address to the nation, so that it gives him that leeway to stay in office. But if he's not able to, who's been running the country?
Yeah.
Um, who, and all the things that have happened, he should have at least fired half his staff for not protecting him in certain situations, for not helping him navigate through those things. If he's not fully in charge of his faculties, he's not fully in charge. Well, who's running the nation? So,
Yeah.
and I think that's a fair question. It's a fair question that Americans need to have answered. It's a fair question for the leaders, his staff, his chiefs of staff to have answered. Who do they go to if they're not sure which Joe Biden they're gonna get? So yeah, it's scary.
Mhm.
Now, what does that look like for Kamala Harris? Well, I don't know if that gives her if they decide, you know what, he can't run the country for the next 6 months, for the next 6 months, then, is it better for her to step in that position? Does that give her a better chance at winning? Or, or the reverse? I don't know.
Mm. Well, the interesting thing about, you mentioned Vice President Harris, the interesting thing about that is that her party really, if you look at even polling, I mean, throughout the time that she
Yes.
has been alongside Biden, they don't like her.
Mhm.
She doesn't poll well against Trump either.
Right.
And she's sort of at times been an embarrassment, and it's not because of age. It wasn't,
Definitely not.
wasn't,
Definitely not.
it wasn't that at all. So I'm gonna say, what is one word? You and I both have taught English. So I'm gonna say, give me one word that comes to your mind when I say Kamala Harris.
Whew,
And
one
that's tough.
word.
That's a tough one, I know.
That's a tough one. One word. I don't know. Dare I
Okay,
say?
let me be a little bit more lenient. Give me
Thank
a
you.
phrase. Give me a phrase that kind of sums up how you view Kamala Harris.
Well, the first word that came to my mind, honestly, is silly. Um,
Mm,
So I don't necessarily think she is silly. I think she is extremely bright. She's very intelligent. She's a lawyer. She was an attorney general. She was a senator, that she's done very well academically in her career. So I don't think that she's a foolish person per se. But she does not represent well and has not represented the office of VP over the last several years. And yes, you're right, that it has been an embarrassment. We want our official, like I said, we want our officials to do really well. We want our leaders to do well, whether we agree with them or not. We still want them to
represent.
represent well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's too many gaffes out there about her. The other thing I would say is that she is radical. So I don't
Mm,
know if if there's some things I'd like to know who she is, because I feel like she didn't represent herself well. We don't
right.
know what she does. We have an idea of what she was supposed to do,
Mhm,
or we had hoped that she would do, or,
mhm.
kind of step into, and she didn't do that. So, who is Kamala Harris? I don't know if
Right.
she'll tell us or not, or if I think there's two sides to this, and I'm kind of on the fence about this, is either she was held back or restricted from stepping out and doing or saying too much,
Mhm,
or she didn't know what to do, and that's as far as she got. So,
mm.
will the next couple of months prove her one way or the other? I mean, right now, she's the next thing since sliced bread. I think for the Democratic Party, they're excited, because they were really getting worried about President Biden.
Mhm.
And so they're saying, okay, well, she's not old, like you said.
Yeah, right. Well, that's a plus.
She's
Yeah.
not old,
Yeah.
and she does have some experience. I mean, she's the vice president, so
Yeah.
she's
Well,
been around. She knows
well,
people.
a lot of people don't trust her, and they're because she's the vice president, you know,
Yeah.
President Biden basically stood before the nation and said that his pick was going to be a woman and she was going to be Black. And
Mhm.
so when you go into it with that, then people are, fair or unfair, they're already questioning
Right.
what you can do. And then she already came in with some controversy in the way that she did govern, for lack of a better word, in
Absolutely.
other roles and other positions. It doesn't help either that she suggested that Biden was a racist when she ran alongside him. And so she kind of represents someone who it looked like hungry for power, because 2 weeks ago he was a racist and
Right.
when you wanted to be president, he was the racist. And then,
Right.
and she used,
Preventing her from going to school,
right. And she
I
was so
almost didn't
offended
make it because of you. And then
because
next
of
thing
you.
you know, we're
And then it's
buddies.
like, he's a wonderful man, right?
Yes.
But
The
that's one
best
of the
you'll
things.
ever meet.
Yeah, that's one of the things I don't like about politics, is
Right.
because now there are times when we legitimately, if we take the other side of the aisle and we take JD Vance, to be fair,
Mhm.
he didn't like Donald Trump, 10 years
Right.
ago. And,
That's
and
right.
he spoke out on that.
Mhm.
But we do change our minds. He watched him govern
Right.
He watched him lead, preside, maybe the better word, and he liked what he saw, and he realized I was wrong, and he was a good president. And
Right.
like he said, you make changes. That was 10 years ago. Whereas you had Kamala Harris 2 months prior, he was
Yes.
a racist. Not, so you got to
Right.
wonder about all that. But what is it about her being VP so far, Kiya? How would you describe can you describe what she's done as VP?
My goodness. I can describe what she hasn't done, what
Mm,
we anticipated her to
okay.
do. I mean, President Biden gave her an order, a directive, I should say, to go to the border and help straighten this mess out.
Yeah.
And we have 10 million and counting illegal immigrants in the country right now,
Mhm.
pushing students out of their schools, pushing our already homelessness to a different curb, or
Mhm.
under a different tree, if you will.
Yeah.
They're getting set up in hotels. They're getting set up with an account, an express account, a credit card, a phone, um, medical care, and we've still got people on the streets,
Yeah.
and we've got our own problems. We've got students that are so behind still from COVID, and so we had a real problem. When she was asked if she had gone to the border, she's like, "Well, I haven't been to Europe either." I mean, what kind of response is that? She's like,
Yeah.
"Well, I don't really get your point." Yes, you do. You're not that dumb.
Mhm.
She's not. I refuse to think that she's that sluggish to say
Mhm.
that she didn't understand what he meant. Just go to the border. Just
Mhm.
say, we're working on it. But so, like you said, I don't have trust in her, um, not necessarily her ability, but in her priority for the things that matter in our country right now, our economy,
Immigration.
immigration,
Yeah.
education. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness, she bothered us down here in Florida, just on a whim, and it was utterly ridiculous. I remember that when we were talking about language in the AP exam, and and rightfully so, it needed to be rejected because it needed to be revised. But we've been teaching African American studies in Florida for decades upon decades, so that was never the issue.
Right.
And so she just, she kind of flew in on and rode that little wave. And I
Made a
thought, it didn't
speech.
even make sense.
Yeah. Made a speech. And then I look at leadership as someone who, okay, let's sit down and let's talk about this. You're
Mhm.
the governor, Ron DeSantis. You're the governor of Florida,
Right.
and I have an opportunity, an invitation from you to sit down and clear this up because I feel she was misrepresenting him. And instead
Right.
of saying that, absolutely not, I'm not going to do that, which
Which
tells me
didn't even make sense.
it makes sense.
That was an opportunity to work together, to
Mhm.
cross the aisle and say, look, we can get along, because it's the crime in our political system right now is that one is better than the other. But honestly, there is no side. The Republicans aren't always correct, the Democrats aren't always correct. There is no clear winners, one side wins all. That's not the case, because we're a multifaceted people. We're a nation of diversities, we're a nation of immigrants, but we have some real issues, and we need people to work together in order to get things done, because it's the
Mhm.
American people that fail. It's our students, it's our next generation. And so I'm constantly telling my students, man, you need to get involved in politics. We need you. We need you to be able to think. We need you to be able to look at the issues critically, understand the perspectives, understand what's happening in our nation, what's happening in the world, and understand the role that we play and what's necessary, what's needed. You have to make hard decisions, and we need people that are not going to be political pawns in order to do that. They need to be individual thinkers to be able to represent our country well. And so I'm always pushing them.
And that's a fight because we have the media who are supposed to represent the First Amendment, right?
Mm.
Um, they have a huge responsibility, but they're using it as platforms of propaganda.
Right.
And so it's very difficult, thankfully we have teachers like you, but it's very difficult to weed through all of that. It's extremely different. It's extremely
It
difficult
is.
for adults. So
Yes.
imagine for young people, like what, it's like, what is truth? I feel who was that in the Bible who said, what is truth?
What is truth? Yeah.
With Jesus's trials and the crucifixion. Was it Pontius Pilate? I don't remember. Sorry guys, I don't remember. But but it's the age old question, right?
Yes.
What is truth?
How do you figure it out?
How do you figure it out? And there is truth, and there's lies, and there's
Yes.
propaganda, and so we've got to dig and we've got to do our homework. But like you said, I know what she didn't do well, and that's the border. And so now the media are all running cover. We
Yes.
know that President Biden, maybe he didn't use the term border czar. I don't know if he didn't, but I know that the media were using the term that she was the border czar based on what he said when he said, I am tasking her with this responsibility. Otherwise, no one would have asked her why she didn't go to the border, right?
Absolutely.
Although, of course, they should go to the border anyway. But that was her specific role, apparently, which, as you said, is a disaster.
Yes.
So she can't run on that. So now all the media, I mean, I just saw Axios, they ended up putting out a note on an old story. And saying that, we, like other members of the media, have incorrectly stated that she was the border czar. It's not right. We misspoke back in 2021.
It's
Okay.
insane. Who is going to say, oh my goodness, I'm so glad they changed their minds and they made a mistake. I mean, we are not that stupid. We're just, America, we're smarter than that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so she didn't do well with the border, but what she did make number one was her commitment to the abortion provider, Planned Parenthood, her commitment to what she calls reproductive rights. And so CNN had done a story back in March. Kamala Harris becomes first VP to visit abortion provider with Planned Parenthood visit. And so that seems to be a great issue for her. And it was I'm looking for the name. Yeah, it was called the Fight for Reproductive Freedoms Tour. She toured the Planned Parenthood facility and spoke with staff about reproductive rights. Kiya, is that going to be what she runs on for the presidency now that, President Biden has endorsed her? Do you think that's what it is?
Oh, definitely. She's definitely going to run with that. I mean, she's got to run with something. And she doesn't have a record she really hasn't done much to say that she can. The other day she was speaking and she mentioned her record as an attorney general in California, which we know is, she put away so many nonviolent offenders, which is why a lot of people, especially Black folks, did not like her to begin with. And so her record as an attorney general, I mean, I don't know if she can, how much she's going to be able to run on that. I looked in her record as a senator, and there were, as far as some major votes, I'm still researching some of that, but she wasn't there very long as a senator before she, took that run for the bid for president. So, what has she done? Her opportunity to really make a move and make, make some stake some claim, I guess you would, in the country, in the position she's in, is as VP, and she really has not done that. So her being that first, she definitely will run with that. She's a woman, reproductive rights, she's definitely going to jump on that bandwagon. Yeah. And it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate as a Black woman, where we have some of the highest rates of abortion in the Black community. I mean, it's sickening. So, that's definitely disappointing. I would love to be able to say, yes, go Kamala, but there is nothing that she brings to the table that I can see so far that says, you know what, you get my vote.
Let me ask you this.
There's just nothing there.
Yeah, let me ask you this. And this is like, seriously, rubber meets the road. Are we at the place in our society in 2024 where people can look at a candidate and make a decision based on what they bring to the table, based on the record they have, without regard to race or sex?
Every car owner knows how important it is for the car to run properly. And it doesn't run properly if the transmission doesn't run properly. DL Transmissions is home of the free transmission inspection. Their free inspection includes a comprehensive road test with a top technician with state-of-the-art scanning equipment and a detailed consultation with Daryl LeGrand. If you think your transmission is not working right, call their office. It's 573-334-8726 or stop by their shop at 783 South Kings Highway in Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Without regard to race or sex, are we able to do that?
As a majority, I think I would say a couple of years ago, no. But I think in 2024, going into 2025, people's pocketbooks are hurting and they're like, you know what? I could care less if you're black, yellow, red, purple, or whatever. People are looking at their finances. They're saying, I need somebody who's in office who's going to fix my finances. I've got to feed my family. You know, my kids are about to go to college and college education is ridiculously astronomical. You know, if we don't open up more manufacturing, if we still allow China to come in and suck the rest of the life out of our economy, then I need somebody who's going to be strong in foreign policy. We've got these wars going on and it's sucking our finances.
Yes,
I mean, obviously that's not the reason that we want to, not support them, but all of that plays into play. So I'm thinking my thought process is that when people start to care about all those things a lot less when there's no money in their hands, there's no money in the bank, when they're trying to put gas in their car, when they're trying to buy a house, when they're trying to figure out, wait, we can't live in the place that we live anymore because we can't afford it. Then they start, okay, we got a problem in our country. Stop playing games, you guys. I'll come back to whomever, I'd like to be in office once y'all fix this up. You know what I mean? So I think there are more pressing matters.
I absolutely. And I think that people are looking, and I'm always thinking about our children. I'm always thinking about the young people. And I've heard people, and you mentioned black people, I've heard black people say things like, listen, this immigration problem is adversely affecting us. Someone was saying, like, there was this youth center where she wants her son to be able to be where it's safe, where they shut that down because they needed that for, people who cross the border illegally.
Absolutely.
And then bringing the drugs in, the fentanyl and all this stuff that's coming in. It's our border is overrun. And then when we talk about children, this administration is absolutely committed to allowing your children to be mutilated. If the kid decides, I kind of feel like a girl today, and they're like, okay, something's wrong with you, they say, if you don't want your son's penis chopped off.
That's ridiculous. Without parent permission, without parent notice. That's absolutely
and the same
insane.
thing. The same thing with abortion.
You can't get a driver's license without a parent. You can't. That makes no sense.
They want to totally just do what they want to do with their children. If you try to take a stand against pornography, something I fought in the public libraries or in the schools for children, they will say then you are censoring. You use the word radical. I think it's a radical agenda, and I pray that people will. You know what? If you can look at Kamala Harris, if she is the one that becomes the nominee. Because who knows what could end up happening, right?
Right.
But
it changes daily.
Whatever happens. I mean, if you can look at her and you can look at your values and you go, well, that aligns with my values, regardless of the color of her skin, regardless of, but if I can look at that and say, yeah, I'm all for the border being overrun. I totally don't care if I got money in my pocket. I'm not interested in energy independence. I don't care if you cut my little Johnny's penis off. I mean, if that's your value, you're okay with that, then vote for her by all means, but if not, then we've got to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and say, what's best for our country, for our states, for our cities, for our families. Now, help me understand something. The people did not vote for Kamala Harris to be at the top of the ticket. How does that work?
They did not. So they just completely sidestepped the democratic process to appoint her. Now RFK is running, Robert Kennedy Jr. is running as an independent, but he's was part of the Democratic Party, running as an
Right.
independent. So, I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't know what that looks like, but you're hearing over and over in the media that there's a coronation. I'm like, where are they even getting this terminology? Like, she's
Yeah.
been appointed and anointed to be the queen of the party.
That people didn't even vote
Blows
for.
me away.
Didn't vote for.
They did not vote. So I heard on the news the other day that they were talking about first of all, having a virtual vote for delegates, which I'm thinking that sounds completely erroneous. That's never been done before, that I know of. And let's see, or getting to the convention and just having everybody vote and let's see what happens. So, who knows? This has been the oddest few months of,
Yeah.
the craziest thing from, my goodness. Dan Bongino came out the other day and he's like, people, we almost had an assassination of a former president. I think they're just not, people aren't taking it seriously. And, we are in a state where, we would look at other countries in this similar kind of thing and be floored. But for America, I think the understanding, it's just really wild right now.
It's like nothing we've ever seen before. I don't know if, I want to say, I don't know if there are rules for this, but I think there are rules for this. And I'm thinking we're breaking them here.
We're breaking the rules, right?
I'm not quite sure that it's supposed to go this way. I think the way it's supposed to go is that if the president is not fit, then, the 25th Amendment can come into play. And then she would step in and then she'd have to rerun somehow, right? For another term. It's like we're making it up as we go along.
Making it up as we go. You're right.
Yeah, it's really kind of interesting.
Yes.
So as we end, I got to ask you this. And it might be a hard question, but I'm gonna ask you, what could possibly happen leading up to November and even on election day in November and leading to January that would make you say, I feel absolutely optimistic about where we are as a nation and where we're going? Is there anything?
I'm optimistic already. This election cycle, it has been draining, definitely. It feels like we've been in a consistent election cycle since President Biden and Kamala Harris, VP Kamala Harris went into office. I feel like we've just been running. So it is draining. It's tiring. So I'm optimistic. You know what? Whoever ends up in the Oval, in that administration, it's 4 years. You know what? Unless Jesus comes back, we'll still be here. We'll make it work. We're going to happen. I don't think, I don't anticipate a World War III at this point. I think, some people do, unless the Lord says, look, y'all messed up and I'm going to have to turn my head and just something, things fall out of the sky. Any of those things could happen, but I'm going to trust that God is in control. And I'm optimistic that people are engaging. They're looking at the issues. They're looking at their values. They're saying, I think we're in a period of time where things that we trusted in, people that we trusted, unfortunately are falling. We're seeing they're being exposed. And we're having to come face to face with truth. What's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's a lie, what's wise, what's foolish. And I think we are at that stage in America where we have to make a decision. We have to make a choice. And do we want to continue like this? So I'm optimistic that people will make the choice. They're looking at the variables, they're looking at their options, and they're saying, I can't stand by anymore. I think there are more and more people that are standing up and saying, you know what, I was not going to get involved. I was not going to say anything, but you know what, this is too much. I've had enough. And so I feel like we're at that, we're more and more people are at that point. I'm definitely conservative. There's definitely, if we had a conservative, I wish that we had no party affiliations and that everyone could be, that we can just vote for who we want to, obviously we can vote for whomever we want to vote for, but there are no, George Washington said, we should not have this two-party system because it's going to divide the nation. I think this is a time for unity. We've got to look at the overall picture and say we need to do what's best for our country. I love America first, because when we put ourselves, and it sounds sort of selfish in a sense, but when we put America first, then we can be in a position to help other people, which is really what we do.
That's what we do. Yeah.
That's what we do. So I don't think that takes away from that, but I think it, it strengthens us, and it says, and it keeps us in the forefront. I mean, we are one of the most, the greatest nation, with the greatest economy, with the fastest movement. I mean, we have a responsibility, and if our house is falling apart, we got to fix the house.
Absolutely.
And then we can go help other people fix their houses. So, that just makes sense. And I feel like we've got to get back to what makes sense.
Yeah.
Our leaders in Congress have to work together. They've got to work. It doesn't matter if they're Democrat or Republicans. I've heard so many tales and stories of, of these political cliques in in Congress. And I feel like there should be term limits because of that. You know what? You shouldn't have time to make clicks. You should be working for the people that voted you in. So I'm optimistic. It's not going to stay like this forever. Most things are temporary. The only thing that's not temporary, that will never change, is God's word. So, he says we win in the end. So, hey, I'm good with that.
Well, I will say that I agree most with the statement that God is ultimately in control, and that that I can trust him. He's taken his control and his power, and he's given a lot of that over to us to manage. And I pray that we manage it well.
No, we've got to play our part. And I think, we're, like you said, we're at the point where more and more people will make the choice and will do whatever it takes for it, that's in their, ability to do, to say, okay, this is how I'm going to play a role in this, and saving our nation.
We can end it there, because I like that. I want to end on the optimistic note. And because, like you, I love the nation, and I want to see us do great things, and our trust is in God to make that happen. So it's wild right now politically. So I'm thankful that you're able to come on and talk some politics with me, with your background, not only in political science as a major in college, but teaching global studies. Is it?
Global perspectives, yes.
Right, global perspectives, and having your mind wrapped around that, and influencing other people, young people, to have an understanding also. So thank you so much for being on the show, and I'm sure it won't be the last time, God willing.
Yes, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. I was waiting. I was like, I got to have a conversation with Adrienne soon. So I'm glad that it was this week. Thank you so much.
Yes. It is indeed a wild time in the United States of America. I hope you got something out of my conversation with Kiya Cordeau. Thank you for tuning in. If you have not subscribed to the Adrienne Ross Show, please do. At the time of this recording, I am just short of 15,000 subscribers. That's amazing. I'm at 14.9. So help put me over the edge to 15,000. Subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. I'd appreciate it. If you'd like to donate, the information is on the screen, as well as in the description of this particular episode. I hope I catch you next time. I will, God willing. God bless you abundantly.